The mirror cracked with a sickening sound as Grace's head slammed against it, blood trickling down her temple onto the pristine white marble of their Lagos penthouse bathroom. The jagged reflection split her swollen face into fragments. One eye blackened, lips split and bleeding, her once perfect makeup now a grotesque mask of pain and humiliation. "Look at yourself!" Marcus roared, his designer suit wrinkled from the violence, his gold watch catching the harsh bathroom light. "You embarrass me in front of my business partners. Walking into that restaurant looking like some market woman." Grace tried to speak, but only a whimper escaped. The woman who had once graced magazine covers as Nigeria's most celebrated model now cowered on the cold floor, her emerald cocktail dress torn at the shoulder. What would you do if you faced this kind of abuse? Hit like if you believe every woman deserves respect, and comment below where you're watching from. Marcus Daniel Okoro, 38 years old, CEO of Okoro Industries, Lagos's golden boy of domestic abuse and marriage, stood over his wife like a predator. His handsome face, the same one that charmed investors and socialites, was twisted with rage. "You used to be beautiful, Grace. Now look at you, getting fat, losing your glow. Do you know how that reflects on me?" The toxic beauty standards he imposed had become her prison. Every morning brought new criticisms. Her skin wasn't light enough, her waist wasn't small enough, her hair wasn't straight enough. The emotional manipulation had started subtly 3 years ago, right after their lavish Abuja wedding that made headlines in every society magazine. Grace struggled to her feet, gripping the shattered mirror's edge. A piece of glass cut into her palm, adding fresh blood to the scene. "Marcus, please. I just wanted to eat something. I've been dieting for weeks." His backhand sent her crashing into the marble vanity. Expensive cosmetics scattered across the floor, the same products he demanded she wear to maintain his image of the perfect wife. "Don't make excuses. My mother called today. She saw photos of you at the charity gala last week. Even she noticed you've let yourself go." Through the bathroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, Lagos's glittering skyline stretched endlessly, a city of dreams that had become her nightmare. Somewhere in those towers, other women were living their lives freely, but Grace felt trapped in a golden cage of African marriage drama. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting instantly from rage to charm as he answered. "Hello, beautiful," he purred into the device, turning away from his bleeding wife. "Yes, I'll be there in an hour. Wear that red dress I bought you." Grace's blood ran cold. Even through her pain, she recognized the tone, the same voice he'd once used with her. As he walked out, stepping over the broken glass and ignoring her completely, she heard him whisper, "Don't worry, baby. My wife will never suspect a thing." The cheating spouse had just revealed himself, but Grace was too broken to process the full weight of his betrayal. She pressed a towel to her bleeding temple, staring at her fractured reflection in the cracked mirror. Each shard showed a different piece of her shattered life: the successful model, the dutiful wife, the abuse victim, the woman slowly disappearing. But in the largest fragment, something flickered in her eyes that Marcus had missed. Not defeat, defiance. Grace Adunni Okoro, daughter of Chief Adebayo Adunni, hadn't survived Lagos's cutthroat modeling industry by being weak. She'd simply forgotten who she was beneath all the fear. As Marcus's Bentley pulled out of their compound, Grace made a decision that would change everything. She reached for her phone with trembling fingers, scrolling to a contact she hadn't called in months. Her sister Victoria, the family lawyer who'd warned her about Marcus from the beginning. The phone rang once before a familiar voice answered. "Grace? What's wrong?" "Victoria," Grace whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need help. He's cheating, and tonight he almost killed me." But before she could say another word, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Marcus had returned, and he was bringing someone with him. A woman's laughter echoed through their home. Grace pressed herself against the bathroom door, her heart hammering as she listened to the voices downstairs. Through the thin crack under the door, she could see the hallway light shifting as two figures moved through her home. Her sanctuary turned into a stage for public disgrace. "This place is incredible," A woman's voice drifted up the marble staircase. Young, sultry, with a slight Yoruba accent. Much nicer than those hotel rooms. Marcus's laughter boomed through the house. Wait until you see the bedroom, Kemi. My wife's in Abuja visiting her sick aunt. We have all night. Grace's blood turned to ice. Not only was her cheating spouse bringing his mistress into their home, but he was lying about her whereabouts. The emotional manipulation had reached a new low, and she realized this wasn't his first time. How many nights had she been away on modeling shoots while he entertained other women in their bed? She ended the call with Victoria, knowing her sister would call back and potentially expose her. Moving carefully across the glass-strewn floor, Grace crept to the bathroom window that overlooked the foyer. What she saw below made her stomach lurch. The woman was stunning, probably mid-20s, with the kind of effortless beauty that came from youth and confidence. She wore a tight red dress that hugged every curve, her natural hair styled in elegant twists. Everything Grace used to be before Marcus's toxic beauty standards slowly eroded her self-worth. You're married to that old model, right? Kemi asked, trailing her fingers along the imported Italian furniture. Grace something? I used to see her on billboards everywhere. Grace is adequate, Marcus replied dismissively, pouring 2 glasses of wine from Grace's private collection, bottles her father had gifted them for their anniversary. But she's gotten comfortable. Lazy. A man needs excitement, beautiful. He needs a woman who appreciates him. Grace watched in horror as Marcus pulled Kemi close, kissing her passionately in the same foyer where they posed for their wedding photos. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical blow he'd ever delivered. Her phone vibrated with a text from Victoria. Grace, what happened? I'm coming over now. Panic shot through Grace. If Victoria arrived and found Marcus with Kemi, the confrontation would be explosive. Victoria had never liked Marcus, had warned the entire family about his controlling behavior during their engagement. But Grace had been blinded by his wealth, his status, his promises of a glamorous life. She texted back quickly. Don't come. Emergency situation. We'll call tomorrow. But as she hit send, another text appeared, this one from an unknown number. Mrs. Okoro, this is Detective Sarah Williams, Lagos State Police. We need to speak with you about your husband's business dealings. Please contact me urgently. Grace's hands shook as she read the message. What business dealings? Marcus had always been secretive about his work, claiming his deals were too complex for her to understand. Another form of control, another way to keep her dependent and uninformed. Downstairs, the voices were moving toward the staircase. Come on, baby, Marcus was saying. Let me show you where the magic happens. Grace looked around desperately. The bathroom window led to a small balcony overlooking their garden, but it was a 20-foot drop to the ground. The door was her only escape route, but they were heading straight for it. Then she remembered the panic room Marcus had installed when they first moved in, a small space behind the master bedroom's walk-in closet, equipped with its own phone line and security monitors. Originally designed for break-ins, it might just save her from this domestic nightmare. She gathered her torn dress around her and crept out of the bathroom, staying low as she moved through the darkened hallway. Behind her, Marcus's voice grew louder. Grace thinks she's the only woman who's ever satisfied me, but between you and me, she's been a disappointment for years. The words hit like physical blows, but Grace pushed forward. She reached the walk-in closet just as she heard them entering the bedroom. Her fingers found the hidden panel behind her evening gowns, dresses Marcus had chosen, criticized, and used to control her appearance. The panel slid open silently, and Grace squeezed into the narrow space just as Kemi's laughter filled the bedroom. Through the one-way mirror that served as the panic room's window, she could see them clearly. Marcus was showing off like a teenager, pointing out the Italian marble, the custom furniture, the portrait of Grace that hung above their bed. See that painting? Cost me 50,000 naira. I told the artist to make her skin lighter, her waist smaller. Even in art I had to improve her. Grace pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. The portrait had been a surprise gift for their second anniversary. She'd thought it was romantic. Now she realized it was just another tool of manipulation, another way to reshape her into his ideal. But as she watched Marcus undress his mistress in their marital bed, Grace noticed something that made her blood run cold. On the nightstand, partially hidden by a lamp, was a small recording device, its red light blinking steadily. Someone was documenting this betrayal. But who? And why? Grace stared at the recording device, her mind racing. Who would be secretly documenting her husband's infidelity? And more importantly, how long had it been there? The red light continued blinking as Marcus and Kemi fell onto the bed, their passion playing out like a twisted performance. Grace wanted to look away, but she couldn't tear her eyes from the scene. This wasn't just cheating, this felt orchestrated, planned. Her phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. Mrs. Okoro, we have evidence of financial crimes involving your husband. You may be in danger. Meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m., Federal Palace Hotel lobby. Come alone. Financial crimes? Grace's heart pounded as pieces began clicking together. Marcus's mysterious business meetings, the expensive gifts he showered on her that never made sense with his declared income, the way he always handled their finances personally. She'd attributed his secrecy to protective instincts, never imagining it might be something darker. Through the one-way mirror, she watched Kemi suddenly sit up in bed, reaching for something in her purse on the nightstand. For a terrifying moment, Grace thought she might be reaching for a weapon. Instead, Kemi pulled out her phone and began recording a video of Marcus, who was too intoxicated with passion to notice. Say something sweet, Kemi purred, holding the phone at arm's length to capture them both. Tell me how much you love me. Marcus, completely unaware he was being recorded, pulled her closer. I love you more than I ever loved Grace. She was just good for my image, a beautiful wife to show off at events. But you, baby, you're what I actually want. Grace's broken heart shattered completely, but through the pain, her mind began working. Kemi wasn't just a mistress, she was documenting evidence. The mysterious recording device, the strategic positioning, the leading questions. This young woman was building a case, but against whom? The answer came quickly. Kemi's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it while Marcus dozed beside her. Her entire demeanor changed. The sultry mistress disappeared, replaced by someone coldly professional. She quietly gathered her things, dressed quickly, and slipped out of the bedroom. Grace heard the front door close minutes later, leaving Marcus alone and vulnerable. But instead of feeling sorry for her cheating spouse, Grace felt something else: opportunity. She waited 20 minutes before creeping out of the panic room. Marcus was snoring loudly, completely unaware that his marriage, his reputation, and possibly his freedom were about to crumble. Grace moved silently to the nightstand and examined the recording device. It was professional grade, not something purchased at a local electronics shop. Someone with resources and knowledge of Marcus's activities had planted it. The detective's message suddenly made more sense. Marcus wasn't just guilty of domestic abuse in marriage and infidelity. He was involved in something that had attracted law enforcement attention. Grace carefully photographed the device with her phone, then crept back to the panic room. She needed to think, to plan, to understand what she'd stumbled into. But first, she had to treat her wounds and figure out how to survive the next few days without Marcus realizing what she knew. Using the panic room's secure phone line, she called her sister Victoria. I need you to listen carefully and don't interrupt, Grace whispered. Marcus is involved in something illegal. There's a detective who wants to meet with me, and I think I just witnessed him being set up by someone recording evidence. Victoria's sharp intake of breath carried clearly through the line. Grace, where are you? Are you safe? I'm in the panic room. Victoria, I need you to research Detective Sarah Williams with Lagos State Police. Find out if she's legitimate. And I need you to prepare something else. I want a divorce attorney. The best one money can buy. Grace, what happened tonight? Grace touched her swollen face gingerly. He beat me for beauty standards I can never meet, then brought his mistress into our home. But Victoria, I think someone's playing a bigger game here. Marcus might be about to lose everything, and I need to make sure I don't go down with him. I'll handle the research tonight. But Grace, are you thinking about going to this meeting with the detective? Grace looked through the one-way mirror at her sleeping husband. The same hands that had just made love to another woman had beaten her bloody hours earlier. The same mouth that had whispered sweet lies to Kemi had screamed cruel truths about Grace's inadequacy. Yes, she whispered. It's time to stop being a victim and start being a survivor. But Victoria, if something happens to me... Nothing's going to happen to you. Victoria interrupted fiercely. I won't let it. But as Grace ended the call, she heard Marcus stirring in the bedroom. His phone was ringing, and his groggy voice carried clearly through the walls. What do you mean she has photos? Who has photos? His voice sharpened with panic. How much does she want? Grace pressed her ear to the mirror. Marcus was being blackmailed. But by whom? Kemi? Or someone else entirely? No, 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 Marcus was saying, his voice rising to a shout. You don't understand. If those photos go public, I'm finished. My wife, my business, everything. The toxic beauty standards and emotional manipulation he'd used to control Grace were nothing compared to the trap he now found himself in. Someone had turned the tables on Marcus Okoro, and Grace was getting a front-row seat to his downfall. Grace pressed harder against the mirror as Marcus's panic escalated. His phone conversation was growing more desperate by the minute, and she could hear him pacing frantically across their bedroom floor. Listen to me carefully, Marcus hissed into the phone. Whatever you want, money, connections, anything, just name it. Those photos cannot surface. My wife doesn't know about us, and if she finds out... He trailed off, but Grace could fill in the blanks. If she found out about the cheating, she could take half his assets in a divorce. If the public found out about his affairs, his carefully crafted image as Lagos's golden businessman would crumble. But what photos was he so afraid of? 20 million naira? Marcus's voice cracked. Are you insane? I don't have that kind of liquid cash just sitting around. Grace's breath caught. 20 million naira, roughly $50,000. Someone wasn't just blackmailing Marcus. They were trying to destroy him financially. The revenge story was unfolding before her eyes, and she wasn't even the one orchestrating it. Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I've made people disappear for less than this. Don't test me. A chill ran down Grace's spine. Made people disappear? What exactly was Marcus involved in? The domestic abuse she'd endured suddenly seemed like the tip of an iceberg of violence and criminality. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, different from the detective's. Mrs. Okoro, your husband is in grave danger. Meet me at the Federal Palace Hotel bar tonight at midnight if you want to understand what's really happening. A friend who knows the truth. Grace stared at the message, her mind reeling. How many people knew about Marcus's activities? How many were watching their marriage? She felt like a pawn in a chess game where she didn't even understand the rules. Marcus's conversation continued, his voice growing more threatening. Fine. I'll get your money. But this ends tonight. After I pay, you disappear from my life forever, or I'll make sure you regret ever crossing Marcus Okoro. He hung up and immediately dialed another number. Chief, it's Marcus. I need a favor. Yes, I know it's late. I need 20 million by tomorrow morning, and I need you to arrange a meeting with your police contacts. Someone's trying to extort me. Grace's blood ran cold. Marcus was calling in political favors, potentially corrupting police officers to handle his blackmail problem. The man she'd married wasn't just abusive, he was deeply connected to Lagos's network of corruption and violence. But then she heard something that made her forget everything else. Marcus was talking to someone named Chief, and that voice, muffled though it was, sounded familiar. Terrifyingly familiar. No, Chief Adebayo, I can't tell Grace about this. Your daughter is too emotional, too unstable. She'd probably go to the media or something foolish like that. Grace's world tilted on its axis. Chief Adebayo. Her own father was on the phone with Marcus, discussing keeping secrets from her. Her father, who'd walked her down the aisle 3 years ago with tears in his eyes, who'd told her Marcus would protect and cherish her. I understand your concerns about Grace's episodes, Marcus continued. The medication is helping, but she's still fragile. Finding out about business troubles might trigger another breakdown. Medication? Episodes? Breakdown? Grace pressed her hands to her mouth to keep from screaming. Marcus was lying to her own father about her mental state, creating a narrative that would discredit anything she might say about his abuse or infidelity. The emotional manipulation went deeper than she'd ever imagined. How long had Marcus been painting her as unstable to her own family? How many people believed she was crazy rather than abused? Yes, sir, I'll handle this quietly, Marcus was saying. Grace never needs to know about the financial troubles or the other complications. She's been through enough. When he hung up, Grace heard him moving around the bedroom, opening safes and drawers. Through the mirror, she watched him stuff documents into a briefcase, papers she'd never been allowed to see, despite being his wife and supposedly his partner in life. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Victoria. Detective Sarah Williams is legitimate, but Grace, she's not financial crimes. She's homicide. And there's something else. I found news articles about 3 women who've gone missing in Lagos over the past 2 years. All of them were allegedly having affairs with prominent businessmen. Grace's hands shook as she read the message. Missing women. Affairs with businessmen. Marcus's casual threat about making people disappear suddenly took on a horrifying new meaning. Another message from Victoria. Grace, I think you need to get out of that house right now. Don't pack, don't confront him, just leave. I'm sending a car. But before Grace could respond, she heard Marcus's footsteps approaching the walk-in closet. Her hiding place was about to be discovered, and she was trapped in a space barely large enough for one person. Through the mirror, she watched the closet door open. Marcus stood silhouetted in the doorway, and for a moment she thought he was looking directly at her. Then he reached past her hiding spot and pulled out a gun from behind her evening gowns. A gun she'd never known existed, hidden among the dresses he'd chosen to control her appearance. The symbolism was lost on him but crystal clear to Grace. Her beauty, her clothes, her entire identity had been a facade hiding his true nature. Marcus checked the gun's chamber and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Time to end this problem permanently, he muttered to himself. As he left the closet, Grace realized she wasn't just witnessing her husband's downfall, she might be about to witness murder. Grace's entire body trembled as she watched Marcus leave with the gun. The man she'd married, the father she trusted, the life she'd built, everything was collapsing around her. But through the terror, a strange clarity emerged. For the first time in 3 years, she could see the truth clearly. She waited 10 minutes after hearing Marcus's car leave, then crept out of the panic room. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a battered woman, but her eyes held something new: determination. The domestic abuse in marriage, the toxic beauty standards, the emotional manipulation, it all made sense now. Marcus hadn't been trying to improve her. He'd been systematically destroying her credibility and self-worth. Her phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. Grace, thank God. Are you safe? For now. Victoria, you need to know something. Father is involved. Marcus called him Chief Adebayo and they discussed keeping me in the dark about financial troubles. And Marcus has been telling people I'm mentally unstable, that I'm on medication. The silence on Victoria's end stretched painfully long. Finally, her sister spoke, her voice heavy with something that sounded like guilt. Grace, there's something I need to tell you. Father asked me not to, but after tonight. What? The marriage contract you signed with Marcus, it wasn't standard. If you're declared mentally incompetent, Marcus gets power of attorney over all your assets, including your modeling contracts and endorsement deals. Father insisted on that clause. Grace sank onto the bathroom floor, the cold marble shocking against her skin. You're saying Father sold me? I'm saying Father made a business deal disguised as a marriage arrangement. Your modeling career was worth millions, Grace. The international contracts, the endorsement deals with European fashion houses. Marcus didn't marry you for love. He married you for your earning potential. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The constant criticism of her appearance wasn't about beauty standards. It was about destroying her confidence and career value. The isolation from friends and family wasn't possessiveness. It was about controlling her narrative. The medication he'd been secretly giving her, claiming it was vitamins, wasn't for her health. It was to make her actually appear unstable. Victoria, I think he's been drugging me. Those vitamins he insists I take every morning. That would explain the memory issues you mentioned, the mood swings. Grace, you need to get out of there now. I have a car waiting outside your compound. But Grace was thinking bigger. No. If I run now, he'll spin it as another mental episode. He'll get sympathy, keep my money, and probably disappear. I need evidence. Grace, he has a gun. He might be planning to kill someone tonight. Then I need to stop him. Victoria, call Detective Williams. Tell her I have information about the missing women and I'll meet her tomorrow as planned. But tonight, I need to follow Marcus. Are you insane? Grace laughed bitterly. According to everyone, I already am. That's going to be my advantage. She hung up and moved quickly through the house, gathering the things she needed. The recording device from the nightstand, evidence of Kemi's setup. Marcus's laptop from his study, which she'd never been allowed to touch. A small camera from their security system that she could use to document whatever happened tonight. Most importantly, she went to Marcus's study safe, the one he thought she didn't know about. She'd watched him open it countless times while pretending to dust. Inside, she found documents that made her blood run cold. Insurance policies on 3 women, all worth millions, all recently deceased. Financial records showing massive payouts. And photos of women she recognized from Lagos society pages, all marked with dates and dollar amounts. Marcus wasn't just having affairs, he was killing his mistresses and collecting insurance money. The pattern was clear, methodical, and absolutely horrifying. Grace was staring at evidence of multiple murders disguised as accidents or disappearances. Her phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number. He's at the Eco Hotel. Room 412. Hurry if you want to save her. Grace stared at the message. Someone was trying to help her. But who? And how did they know where Marcus was? She grabbed her car keys, then stopped. If she drove her own vehicle, Marcus might recognize it. Instead, she called for a ride-sharing service, giving them the Eco Hotel as her destination. As the car pulled up to her compound, Grace caught her reflection in the window. The swollen face, the split lip, the bruised throat, she looked like a victim. But appearances could be deceiving. Tonight, she was going to be something else entirely. The drive to Victoria Island felt like a journey between worlds. Lagos's glittering skyline surrounded her, full of dreams and ambitions, while she sat in the back of a stranger's car carrying evidence of multiple murders. The contrast between the city's beauty and the darkness she'd discovered in her own marriage felt surreal. Her phone rang as they approached the hotel. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Hello? She answered, trying to sound sleepy. Grace, baby, I'm sorry about earlier. I was stressed about work, and I took it out on you. Are you okay? The concern in his voice would have fooled her a week ago. Now she recognized it as another manipulation tactic. I'm fine, Marcus. I took some of those vitamins you gave me and went to sleep early. Where are you? Business meeting ran late. I might not be home until morning. Get some rest, and we'll talk tomorrow. Okay. I love you, she lied smoothly. I love you too. As she hung up, Grace realized she just participated in what might be Marcus's last conversation with his wife. Because if her suspicions were right, he was about to commit murder, and she was going to stop him. The car pulled up to the Eco Hotel's circular driveway. Through the lobby's floor-to-ceiling windows, Grace could see Lagos's elite mingling in designer clothes, unaware that a serial killer was among them. She paid the driver and stepped out into the warm Nigerian night. Room 412 was waiting, and with it, the truth about her marriage and her husband's crimes. But as she walked toward the hotel entrance, she noticed a familiar figure in the lobby, Detective Sarah Williams, who was supposed to meet her tomorrow. The detective was watching the elevators intently, her hand resting on something concealed beneath her jacket. Grace realized she wasn't the only one planning to confront Marcus tonight. Grace slipped through the Eco Hotel's side entrance, avoiding the main lobby where Detective Williams waited. The hotel's marble corridors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, a stark contrast to the darkness she was about to confront. Her heart pounded as she made her way to the elevators, the evidence-filled bag clutched tightly in her hands. Room 412 was on the 4th floor, and as the elevator climbed, Grace's mind raced through possibilities. Was Kemi the intended victim? Another innocent woman caught in Marcus's web? Or was this all part of a larger trap that she was walking into? The elevator dinged softly, and the doors opened onto a carpeted hallway lined with expensive artwork. Grace could hear muffled voices coming from the direction of room 412, and she crept closer, staying against the wall. Through the slightly open door, she could see Marcus pacing frantically while talking to someone on his phone. But it wasn't Kemi in the room with him. It was another woman entirely. Older, more sophisticated, wearing a business suit that screamed power and money. "The photos are already uploaded to a secure server," the woman was saying calmly, her British accented English cutting through Marcus's panic. "Even if you kill me tonight, they'll be released automatically if I don't check in every 12 hours. Grace pressed closer to the door, recognizing the voice. This was Chief Judge Patricia Adebayo, not just any judge, but one of Lagos's most respected legal minds. What was she doing in a hotel room with Marcus? "You don't understand," Marcus growled, and Grace could see him reaching inside his jacket. "I've worked too hard to let some bitter woman destroy everything I've built." "Bitter?" Judge Adebayo laughed coldly. "Marcus, I'm not bitter. I'm methodical. Do you know how long I've been building this case against you? 2 years. 2 years of watching you prey on vulnerable women, drain their bank accounts, and then arrange their convenient deaths." Grace's breath caught. Judge Adebayo wasn't Marcus's victim, she was his hunter. "You killed my daughter," the judge continued, her voice steady despite the gun now visible in Marcus's hand. "Rebecca was just 26 years old. She thought you loved her, trusted you with her inheritance from her grandmother. 3 months later, she was dead in what police called a tragic accident." Rebecca Adebayo, Grace remembered the headlines from 8 months ago. A young lawyer who'd supposedly fallen from her apartment balcony after a night of heavy drinking. The media had painted her as another privileged youth who'd partied too hard, but her mother had insisted something was wrong. "Your daughter was unstable," Marcus snarled. "She threatened to expose our relationship unless I left Grace. I couldn't let that happen. So you pushed her off a balcony and made it look like suicide." Judge Adebayo's voice never wavered. "Just like you pushed Sarah Okafor in front of a bus after she discovered your money laundering operation. Just like you arranged for Fatima Ibrahim's car accident after she tried to blackmail you." Grace's hands shook as she recorded everything on her phone. Marcus was confessing to multiple murders, and Judge Adebayo was drawing out every detail with prosecutorial precision. "The only mistake I made," Marcus said, raising the gun, "was underestimating a grieving mother's dedication to justice." "Oh, Marcus," Judge Adebayo smiled sadly. "You've made so many more mistakes than that." The hotel room door exploded open, and Detective Williams burst in with 3 uniformed officers, weapons drawn. "Lagos State Police! Drop your weapon!" Chaos erupted. Marcus spun toward the door, his gun swinging wildly between Judge Adebayo and the officers. In the confusion, Grace saw her opportunity and slipped into the room behind the police. "Grace?" Marcus's voice cracked with shock. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be home, medicated and sleeping." The admission hung in the air like a confession. Even Detective Williams raised an eyebrow at the blatant reference to drugging his wife. "I stopped taking your vitamins 3 days ago, Marcus," Grace said quietly, stepping fully into the room. "I know about the money laundering, the murdered women, the insurance policies. I know everything. Marcus's face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, panic, and finally, the cold calculation she'd seen so many times before domestic abuse episodes. She's mentally ill, he told Detective Williams desperately. My wife has been having episodes, paranoid delusions. Her own father can confirm it. She's on medication for drugs you've been giving her without her knowledge. Judge Adebayo interrupted. Yes, we know about that too. Did you think we wouldn't test the vitamins we found in your house? Grace stared at the judge. You've been in our house? Court-ordered search warrant executed this afternoon while you were indisposed. We found quite a lot, Mrs. Okoro. Financial records, insurance documents, photographs of victims, and a very interesting recording device that's been documenting your husband's activities for weeks. The recording device from their bedroom, Judge Adebayo had planted it, not Kemi. The entire setup had been a legal operation designed to gather evidence for prosecution. Kemi works for me, Judge Adebayo continued, noticing Grace's confused expression. She's an undercover investigator specializing in financial crimes. Your husband was never as clever as he thought. Marcus's desperation peaked. You want to know about toxic beauty standards and emotional manipulation? He screamed at Grace. Look in the mirror! You were so pathetic, so eager to please, that you never questioned anything. You were the perfect victim. The words that should have destroyed her instead filled Grace with a strange power. You're right, she said calmly. I was the perfect victim. But Marcus, you made one fatal mistake. What's that? Grace smiled, pulling out her phone and showing him the recording app that had been running throughout the entire confrontation. You forgot that victims can learn to fight back. Detective Williams moved closer to Marcus, handcuffs ready. Marcus Daniel Okoro, you're under arrest for the murders of Rebecca Adebayo, Sarah Okafor, Fatima Ibrahim, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. But as the detective began reading his rights, Marcus made one final, desperate move. He lunged toward the hotel room's balcony, the same type of balcony he'd pushed Rebecca from months earlier. Whether he intended to jump or just escape, Grace would never know. Because Judge Adebayo, despite being in her 60s, moved with the reflexes of someone who'd been preparing for this moment for months. She tackled Marcus before he could reach the balcony, and the gun skittered across the marble floor. That's for Rebecca, Judge Adebayo whispered as Detective Williams and her officers swarmed over Marcus, finally placing him in handcuffs. Grace stood frozen, watching her husband, her abuser, her attempted murderer, being arrested for crimes she never could have imagined. The toxic beauty standards, the emotional manipulation, the systematic destruction of her self-worth. It had all been a cover for something far more sinister. Mrs. Okoro. Detective Williams approached her gently. We're going to need your statement, but first, are you injured? Do you need medical attention? Grace touched her swollen face, the evidence of that evening's beating still fresh and painful. I need to call my sister. And Detective Williams? My father knew. About the financial arrangements, about Marcus drugging me. He was part of this. Judge Adebayo's expression hardened. Chief Adunni will be facing his own charges soon enough. This conspiracy goes deeper than just your husband, Mrs. Okoro. As they led Marcus away in handcuffs, he turned back to Grace one final time. You'll never survive without me, he screamed. You're nothing. Nobody will ever want a broken, used-up model who couldn't even keep her husband satisfied. The words should have cut deep, should have sent Grace spiraling back into the victim mentality he'd crafted so carefully. Instead, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years, complete freedom. You're wrong, Marcus, she called after him. I'm not broken. I'm just getting started. But as the police led him away, Detective Williams pulled Grace aside with a troubled expression. Mrs. Okoro, there's something else you need to know. We believe your husband has been working with an organized crime syndicate. The money laundering, the murders, they weren't just personal crimes of passion. He was eliminating witnesses and competitors for some very dangerous people. Grace felt her newfound confidence waver. What does that mean for me? It means even with Marcus in custody, you might still be in danger. These people don't leave loose ends, and you know more about their operations than you realize. 3 days later, Grace sat in a safe house in Ikoyi, staring at newspaper headlines that screamed her husband's crimes across Lagos. Beauty and the Beast, model's husband arrested for serial murders. Toxic marriage mass killing spree. The African marriage drama had become international news, and Grace found herself at the center of a media storm she never wanted. Victoria paced the small living room, her phone constantly buzzing with calls from reporters, lawyers, and concerned family members. "The media is calling you a hero," she said, holding up another newspaper. "But Grace, we need to talk about your safety situation." Detective Williams had been clear. Marcus's arrest had only exposed the tip of an organized crime network that stretched from Lagos to international financial markets. The men Marcus had been laundering money for were not the type to forgive and forget, especially when their operations were compromised by a grieving judge and an abused wife who'd fought back. "They've made contact," Victoria continued grimly, showing Grace a text message that had arrived on her phone that morning. "They want to meet. They say they have information about Father's involvement that could destroy our entire family." Grace read the message, her blood chilling at its casual tone. "Mrs. Okoro's cooperation would be appreciated. Mr. Okoro's debts to our organization remain outstanding, regardless of his current legal troubles. We'll be in touch soon to discuss payment arrangements." "Payment arrangements?" Grace looked up at her sister. "What debts?" "According to the financial records Judge Adebayo showed me, Marcus owes these people over 200 million naira. Money he borrowed to fund his lifestyle, his businesses, and apparently to pay for some of his activities. The toxic beauty standards Marcus had imposed, the expensive clothes and jewelry, the luxury penthouse, it had all been purchased with blood money borrowed from killers." Grace felt sick imagining how many women had died to fund her unwitting life of luxury. Her phone rang. Judge Adebayo's name appeared on the screen. "Mrs. Okoro." The judge's voice was tense. "We need to meet immediately. There's been a development." An hour later, Grace and Victoria sat across from Judge Adebayo in a small cafe in Lekki, the judge's usual composure replaced by visible worry. "Your father was arrested this morning," Judge Adebayo said without preamble. "He's been charged with conspiracy, money laundering, and accessory to murder. But Grace, he's made a deal with prosecutors." Grace's heart sank. "What kind of deal?" "He's agreed to testify against the crime syndicate Marcus was working for, in exchange for reduced charges. But the testimony implicates you as a knowing participant in the money laundering operation." "That's impossible!" Victoria exploded. "Grace was being abused and drugged. She didn't know anything." "I know that, and you know that," Judge Adebayo replied calmly. "But your father is claiming Grace was aware of the illegal activities and chose to remain silent in exchange for a luxurious lifestyle. He has documents showing large sums of money deposited into accounts with her name on them." Grace stared at the judge in horror. Her own father was throwing her to the wolves to save himself. The man who'd walked her down the aisle, who'd supposedly protected her, was now painting her as a willing accomplice to murder. "Can he do that?" Grace asked weakly. "He's already done it. The prosecution is building a case that portrays you as a victim who became complicit. They're arguing that after the first few incidents of abuse, you chose to stay silent because you enjoyed the financial benefits of Marcus's crimes." The emotional manipulation was continuing even with Marcus behind bars, but now it was coming from her own family. Grace felt the familiar spiral of self-doubt beginning, the voice in her head that whispered maybe she was guilty, maybe she should have known, maybe she deserved what was happening. But then she remembered the mirror, the cracked reflection that had shown her the truth about her shattered life. She'd made a choice that night to stop being a victim. She wasn't going back now. "What do you need me to do?" Grace asked firmly. Judge Adebayo smiled for the first time since Grace had met her. "I need you to be brave one more time. We're going to set up a meeting with the crime syndicate, and you're going to wear a wire, Absolutely not, Victoria interrupted. Grace has been through enough. Victoria, if we don't stop these people, they'll keep killing women. Marcus was just one tool in their operation. There are other men, other victims, other families being destroyed by this network. Grace thought about the photos she'd found in Marcus's safe. Young women who trusted the wrong man and paid with their lives. Women who looked like her, who'd probably face the same toxic beauty standards and emotional manipulation before being murdered for their money. I'll do it, Grace said quietly. But I have conditions. What conditions? I want full immunity for any unknowing participation in Marcus's activities. I want protection for Victoria and my mother. And I want my father to face the full consequences of his crimes. No reduced sentence for throwing me under the bus. Judge Adebayo nodded slowly. I can arrange the immunity and protection. Your father, that's more complicated, but I'll see what I can do. Grace's phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. Mrs. Okoro, we'll be expecting you tomorrow night at the Radisson Blu Hotel, Victoria Island. Come alone, and bring everything your husband owed us. This is not a negotiation. She showed the message to Judge Adebayo, who cursed under her breath in Yoruba. They're moving fast, the judge said. Probably trying to clean up loose ends before we can build our case. Grace, if you're going to do this, we need to prepare tonight. But as they left the cafe, Grace noticed a black sedan that had been parked across the street when they arrived was now following them at a distance. The crime syndicate wasn't waiting until tomorrow night. They were already watching her. Victoria grabbed her arm. Grace, I just remembered something. When we were kids, Father used to have business meetings at home. Late at night, men in expensive cars would come to the house. Mother always sent us to our rooms, but I used to listen from the stairs. What did you hear? Names. Faces. Conversations about money and favors and people who'd crossed them. Grace, I think Father's been involved with these people for decades. Your marriage to Marcus wasn't just a business arrangement. It was a way to pull the family deeper into their organization. Grace felt the last pieces of her old life crumbling away. Her marriage, her father, her entire understanding of her family, all of it had been built on lies and violence. But through the destruction, she felt something growing stronger. She wasn't just a victim of domestic abuse in marriage anymore. She wasn't just a woman fighting against toxic beauty standards. She was becoming something more dangerous, a survivor who understood the game and was ready to play it better than the men who tried to destroy her. Tomorrow night, she would face the people who'd orchestrated years of violence and manipulation. But tonight, she had work to do. The Radisson Blu Hotel's rooftop restaurant buzzed with Lagos's elite, unaware that a confrontation years in the making was about to unfold among the crystal glasses and designer suits. Grace sat at a corner table, the recording device hidden beneath her elegant black dress, the same dress Marcus had once criticized as too plain for a proper wife. Judge Adebayo's voice crackled softly through the nearly invisible earpiece. They're here. 3 men, entering from the main elevator. Stay calm, Grace. Remember, we need them to incriminate themselves. Grace's hands trembled slightly as she watched 3 well-dressed men approach her table. The leader was younger than she expected, maybe 40, with the kind of effortless confidence that came from never having to fear consequences. His companions flanked him like bodyguards, their expensive suits barely concealing the weapons beneath. Mrs. Grace Okoro, the leader said, settling into the chair across from her. His English carried a subtle Igbo accent, refined by years of international business. I'm Emmanuel Okafor. I believe you know why we're here. Grace forced her voice to remain steady. You want money my husband owed you. Correction. Emmanuel smiled coldly. We want money your family owes us. Your husband was simply our collection agent. A rather ineffective one, as it turns out. Through her earpiece, Grace heard Detective Williams whisper. Keep him talking about the family connection. I don't understand, Grace said, playing confused. My father said Marcus's debts were separate from our family business. Emmanuel laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Your father said many things over the years, Mrs. Okoro. most of them lies designed to protect his own interests. Do you know how long Chief Adebayo has been laundering money through his construction company? Grace's heart sank, but she pressed forward. My father builds schools and hospitals. He's a respected. Your father builds shells. Emmanuel interrupted harshly. Empty structures that exist only on paper, funded with our money to clean profits from drug trafficking, human trafficking, and arms dealing. The schools and hospitals are real enough, but they're built with blood money. The revelation hit Grace like a physical blow. Her father's charitable reputation, his standing in the community, his ability to afford Marcus's bride price, all of it was funded by the most heinous crimes imaginable. Your husband was supposed to expand the operation, Emmanuel continued. Use his connections in the fashion and entertainment industry to move money internationally. Instead, he got greedy. Started killing our business partners and keeping their assets. Business partners? Grace echoed. The women, Mrs. Okoro. Rebecca Adebayo was investigating our construction contracts when Marcus killed her. Sarah Okafor discovered discrepancies in our financial records. Fatima Ibrahim was laundering money through her import business until she tried to blackmail us. Grace realized with growing horror that Marcus hadn't just been a serial killer. He'd been a cleaner, eliminating threats to a vast criminal network. The toxic beauty standards and emotional manipulation had been his way of keeping her distracted while he carried out murders disguised as domestic disputes or accidents. Now Marcus is in police custody, your father is cooperating with prosecutors, and our entire Lagos operation is compromised. Emmanuel's voice hardened. Someone needs to pay for this mess. Through her earpiece, Judge Adebayo whispered urgently. Grace, ask about the international connections. We need names. Grace took a sip of water to buy time, her mind racing. If the Lagos operation is compromised, surely you have other business interests. Emmanuel's eyes narrowed slightly, but his ego got the better of his caution. Our organization operates across West Africa, Mrs. Okoro. Lagos is just one hub. We have operations in Accra, Abidjan, Dakar, and connections that reach London and New York. Your husband's incompetence won't destroy what we've built over decades. Bingo! Detective Williams whispered. Keep going. Grace leaned forward slightly. Then why do you need me? Surely someone of your resources doesn't need money from a model. Oh, but you're so much more than a model. Emmanuel smiled predatorily. You're Chief Adebayo's daughter, Marcus Okoro's wife, and most importantly, you're the face of innocence. You could be very useful to us. Grace felt sick understanding his implication. You want me to replace Marcus. We want you to continue the family business. Your modeling connections give you access to international fashion weeks, wealthy clients, private parties. Perfect opportunities to expand our money laundering operation globally. And if I refuse? Emmanuel's companions shifted slightly in their chairs, a subtle threat. Mrs. Okoro, refusal isn't really an option. Your family owes us 200 million naira, plus interest, plus compensation for the damage Marcus caused. You can pay with money you don't have, or you can work off the debt over time. How much time? Oh, the rest of your life, I imagine. Grace realized she was staring at her future if Judge Adebayo's plan failed. A lifetime of being forced to facilitate crimes, watching other women be manipulated and murdered, becoming complicit in the same network that had destroyed her marriage and killed innocent people. But then she remembered something Marcus had said during his arrest. You'll never survive without me. He'd been wrong about that, just as Emmanuel was wrong to think she was helpless. There's another option, Grace said quietly. Oh? And what's that? Grace smiled, an expression that would have surprised Marcus, who'd worked so hard to crush her spirit. You could all go to hell. Emmanuel's confident facade cracked slightly. Excuse me? You heard me. Go to hell, and take your blood money with you. The restaurant's ambient noise continued around them. Clinking glasses, muted conversations, the soft jazz from the piano, but their table had become a bubble of tension. Emmanuel's companions were reaching inside their jackets when the lights suddenly dimmed and Detective Williams's voice boomed through a megaphone. Lagos State Police! Everyone stay calm and remain seated. The restaurant erupted in chaos as dozens of undercover officers revealed themselves, weapons drawn. Emmanuel lunged across the table toward Grace, but she was ready for him. 3 years of abuse had taught her to recognize violence before it struck, and she rolled away from his grasp just as Judge Adebayo appeared beside their table. Emmanuel Okafor, the judge said calmly, as officers swarmed around them. You're under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, human trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. Emmanuel's mask of sophistication finally fell away completely, revealing the savage beneath. You have no idea what you've done, he snarled at Grace. Our organization reaches everywhere. We own judges, police commissioners, government officials. This arrest means nothing. Maybe, Judge Adebayo replied, producing a thick folder. But we've been recording your organization's activities for 2 years. Every conversation, every transaction, every threat. Your network is finished, Mr. Okafor. As they led Emmanuel and his men away in handcuffs, Grace felt a strange combination of relief and terror. The immediate threat was over, but Emmanuel's words echoed in her mind. Their organization reached everywhere. Detective Williams approached as the restaurant slowly returned to normal. You did brilliantly, Grace. The recordings will help us dismantle their entire network. What about the other operations he mentioned? Accra, Abidjan, the international connections? We'll be working with Interpol and other African law enforcement agencies. This is just the beginning, not the end. But as Grace gathered her purse to leave, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Emmanuel's phone, left behind in the confusion, was buzzing with incoming messages. She caught a glimpse of one before Detective Williams could stop her. Package delivered to safe location. Target acquired. Awaiting further instructions. Grace grabbed the detective's arm. They have Victoria. Grace stared at Emmanuel's phone in horror as more messages appeared. Sister secured. Boss wants proof of compliance by midnight, or she disappears permanently. The words blurred as panic threatened to overwhelm her. Victoria, her protector, her anchor, the one person who'd believed in her throughout the nightmare, was now paying the price for Grace's decision to fight back. Detective Williams grabbed the phone, her face grim as she read the messages. This changes everything. We need to trace these numbers immediately and... No, Grace interrupted, her voice stronger than she felt. They want proof of compliance. That means they want me to do something specific. Let me respond. Grace, we can't negotiate with terrorists. We're not negotiating. We're buying time while you find Victoria. Grace's fingers flew over Emmanuel's phone, typing. What compliance do you require? The response came immediately. Mrs. Okoro will withdraw all cooperation with police. Public statement declaring husband and father's innocence. All charges dropped by morning or sister dies. Judge Adebayo, who had been coordinating with other officers, rushed over. Grace, they're asking the impossible. We can't drop charges that are already filed. The evidence is too strong. Then we fake it, Grace said, her mind racing with desperate plans. I make a public statement claiming I was coerced into lying about Marcus and my father. Create enough confusion to buy time for you to find Victoria. Detective Williams shook her head. If you do that, you'll destroy the entire case. Emmanuel and his network will go free, and more women will die. Grace felt the weight of an impossible choice. Save her sister and let murderers go free, or pursue justice and watch Victoria die for her decision to fight back against the toxic marriage that had nearly destroyed her. But then her phone rang. Victoria's number appeared on the screen. Put it on speaker, Detective Williams instructed. Grace? Victoria's voice was shaky but alive. I'm okay for now, but you need to listen carefully. Victoria, where are you? Are you hurt? I'm in some kind of warehouse. Grace, listen, they think I don't speak Igbo, but I understand everything they're saying. This isn't just about you or the Lagos operation. They're planning something bigger. Through the phone, Grace could hear men speaking in rapid Igbo. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. They're talking about a shipment arriving tomorrow night. Something about fresh merchandise and American buyers. Grace, I think they're trafficking women. Detective Williams and Judge Adebayo exchanged alarmed glances. A human trafficking operation explained the international connections Emmanuel had boasted about. Victoria, can you see anything that might help us locate you? I can hear ships' horns, so we're near the water. And there's a smell like petroleum or industrial chemicals. Lagos Port Complex. Detective Williams said immediately. Dozens of warehouses, most of them empty or abandoned. We'll need hours to search them all. Emmanuel's phone buzzed with another message. 1 hour, Mrs. Okoro. Public statement or sister dies. Grace stared at the countdown that had just begun. 1 hour to choose between justice and family, between stopping a criminal network and saving the person she loved most. Grace. Victoria's voice came through the phone again, stronger now. Don't you dare sacrifice everything we've fought for to save me. These people killed Rebecca Adebayo, Sarah Okafor, and who knows how many others. If you let them go free to save me, their deaths mean nothing. Victoria, I can't. Yes, you can. You're not the victim anymore, remember? You're the survivor who learned to fight back. So fight. The line went dead. Grace stood in the restaurant's chaos, surrounded by police officers and legal experts, holding two phones that represented impossible choices. In one hand, Emmanuel's phone displayed the countdown to her sister's death. In the other, her own phone showed her sister's number, now unreachable. There's another option, she said quietly. Judge Adebayo looked at her with concern. Grace, what are you thinking? I give them what they want, but not how they expect it. Grace's voice grew stronger as the plan formed in her mind. I make the public statement, but I embed information in it that helps you locate the trafficking operation. That's incredibly dangerous. Detective Williams warned. If they realize what you're doing, they'll kill Victoria anyway if we don't find her in time. At least this way, we might save other women too. Grace looked around the restaurant at the aftermath of their successful sting operation. They'd caught Emmanuel and his lieutenants, but the network was bigger than any of them had realized. The domestic abuse and marriage she'd suffered, the toxic beauty standards that had nearly destroyed her self-worth, the emotional manipulation that had kept her silent, it had all been part of a system designed to control and exploit women. She thought about all the victims: Rebecca, who'd died investigating corruption; Sarah, who'd been killed for discovering financial crimes; Fatima, who'd been murdered for trying to fight back; and now Victoria, who was paying the price for helping Grace escape. I'll do it, Grace decided. But I need guarantees. If this goes wrong, if they kill Victoria anyway, you promise me you'll destroy their entire network. No deals, no reduced sentences, no mercy. Judge Adebayo nodded grimly. You have my word. And one more thing, Grace continued. When this is over, when Victoria is safe and these people are in prison, I want to tell my story publicly. Every detail. The abuse, the manipulation, the murders. I want other women to know they're not alone, and I want men like Marcus and Emmanuel to know that victims can fight back and win. Grace looked at Emmanuel's phone as the countdown continued ticking toward midnight. 47 minutes to save her sister and expose a human trafficking network that reached across continents. She began composing the most important statement of her life. One that would either save Victoria or get them both killed, but would definitely ensure that the truth about African marriage drama, domestic abuse, and organized crime was finally told. But as she typed the first words, her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed a number she'd never seen before, with a message that changed everything. Mrs. Okoro, this is Rebecca Adebayo. Yes, I'm alive. And I know where your sister is. Grace stared at her phone screen in disbelief. Rebecca Adebayo, the young lawyer who'd supposedly died 8 months ago, Judge Adebayo's daughter, the woman whose murder had started this entire investigation, was calling her. Rebecca? Grace whispered, putting the phone on speaker as Detective Williams and Judge Adebayo crowded around. But you're dead. We have police reports, a death certificate. All fake. Rebecca's voice was calm but urgent. My mother and I staged my death after I discovered the extent of the trafficking network. It was the only way to investigate safely while they thought I was eliminated. Judge Adebayo's composed facade cracked completely. Rebecca, I've been grieving you for 8 months. I've been planning revenge against Marcus for 8 months. I know, Mom, and I'm sorry. But we needed everyone to believe I was dead, including Grace and Marcus. It was the only way to get close enough to document their operations. Grace felt the world tilting again. You mean the entire investigation was much bigger than you realized? Grace, your abusive marriage wasn't just personal. Marcus was recruiting models and actresses internationally for the trafficking network. The toxic beauty standards he imposed weren't just about control. He was evaluating women for export potential. The revelation hit Grace like a physical blow. Every criticism of her appearance, every demand to lose weight or lighten her skin, every comparison to other women, Marcus hadn't just been destroying her self-esteem. He'd been assessing her market value as human merchandise. The recording device in your bedroom wasn't just gathering evidence about Marcus. Rebecca continued. We were documenting how the recruitment process worked. The systematic abuse, the isolation from family and friends, the financial control. It's a template they use across multiple countries. Detective Williams grabbed Grace's arm. Rebecca, where is Victoria? Warehouse 47 at Lagos Port Complex. But Grace, there's something else. Victoria isn't just a hostage, she's bait. They know you're working with police now, and they're planning to eliminate everyone involved in the investigation tonight. Emmanuel's phone buzzed with a new message. Warehouse surrounded. All targets in position. Awaiting final orders. Grace realized with horrifying clarity that they'd walked into a trap. The trafficking network hadn't just taken Victoria. They'd orchestrated this entire confrontation to eliminate the investigation team in one coordinated strike. How many people are we talking about? Judge Adebayo asked grimly. The immediate team? Maybe 20. But Grace, the international network has hundreds of members. If we don't expose them all tonight, they'll disappear and rebuild somewhere else. Grace looked at the countdown on Emmanuel's phone, 32 minutes remaining. In half an hour, either Victoria would be dead, or they all would be. Rebecca, what do you need me to do? I need you to trust me completely and do exactly what I say. First, make the public statement they're demanding, but include specific details that will alert other law enforcement agencies internationally. Second, go to the warehouse, but not to negotiate, to broadcast everything live on social media. That's insane, Detective Williams protested. Grace will be killed. Maybe, Rebecca admitted. But she'll also expose a human trafficking network to millions of viewers simultaneously. They can kill individuals, but they can't silence the entire internet. Grace thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. A year ago, she'd been a successful model trapped in an abusive marriage, convinced she was worthless and crazy. Tonight, she was being asked to risk everything to save women she'd never met in countries she'd never visited. Grace, Judge Adebayo said softly, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, Grace replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Victoria was right, I'm not a victim anymore. And Rebecca's right, this is bigger than just me or my family. How many other women are out there right now, being told they're not beautiful enough, not thin enough, not light enough, while someone evaluates their worth as merchandise? She began typing her public statement, but instead of the compliance Emmanuel expected, she crafted something that would alert law enforcement agencies across 3 continents, while appearing to cave to his demands. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, she dictated as Rebecca helped her encode crucial information in seemingly innocent phrases. I want to clarify statements I made earlier regarding my husband Marcus Okoro and my father Chief Adunni. After careful reflection, I realize I may have been confused about certain business arrangements. As she spoke, she embedded details about warehouse locations, shipping schedules, and international connections that would mean nothing to Emmanuel's men but everything to trained investigators. The African fashion industry has many beautiful opportunities for international collaboration, especially with partners in London's dock areas and New York's garment district. She continued, providing specific geographic intelligence about trafficking routes. When she finished recording, Rebecca's voice crackled through the phone. Perfect. That statement is now being transmitted to Interpol, FBI, and police agencies in 12 countries. Grace, whatever happens tonight, the network is finished. Grace looked at her reflection in the restaurant window, the same woman who'd stared at her cracked mirror 3 nights ago, but transformed. The swollen face had healed, but more importantly, the defeated spirit had been replaced by something unbreakable. I'm going to the warehouse, she announced. We're all going, Detective Williams corrected. But Grace, once we're there, you do not play hero. You stay behind cover and let us handle the tactical situation. As they prepared to leave, Grace's phone chimed with social media notifications. Her public statement was going viral, but not in the way Emmanuel expected. #SurvivorSpeaks and #EndTrafficking were trending globally as people shared her coded message and began connecting the dots about international trafficking networks. But the final message on Emmanuel's phone made her blood run cold. Statement received. Insufficient compliance. Execute all targets immediately. They were out of time. Grace looked at the team assembled around her. Detective Williams, Judge Adebayo, Rebecca, who was somehow coordinating from an undisclosed location, and a dozen tactical officers. A month ago, she couldn't have imagined herself at the center of an international law enforcement operation. Tonight she was leading it. For Victoria, she said softly. For Rebecca. For Sarah and Fatima and all the women we couldn't save. But mostly, for all the women we still can. As they rushed toward Lagos Port Complex, Grace's phone exploded with messages from around the world. Women sharing their own stories of abuse and manipulation. Men expressing shock at the systematic nature of trafficking operations. Government officials promising investigations and increased enforcement. The domestic abuse and marriage she'd suffered, the toxic beauty standards that had nearly destroyed her, the emotional manipulation that had kept her silent. All of it had led to this moment where her voice was amplifying the voices of survivors globally. But as their convoy approached the warehouse district, Grace saw something that made her realize the night was far from over. The entire port was dark, too dark. Every light had been systematically disabled, and in the distance, she could see armed figures moving between the buildings. Emmanuel's network wasn't planning to disappear quietly. They were preparing for war. And in the center of it all, in a warehouse surrounded by killers, Victoria was waiting for a sister who might not survive the night to save her. Grace checked her phone one final time. The live stream app was ready, connected to her social media accounts that now had millions of followers watching her every move. Whatever happened in the next hour would be seen by the entire world. Rebecca, she whispered into her phone. Tell me you have a plan. I do. Rebecca's voice was calm despite the chaos. But Grace, it requires you to do something that goes against every instinct for self-preservation you have. What? Walk into that warehouse alone, live streaming everything, and trust that sometimes the most powerful weapon against darkness is simply refusing to let it remain hidden. Comment how Grace's journey from victim to survivor inspired you. Share this story with someone who needs to hear about the power of fighting back against abuse. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping African stories that show the strength of African women. What do you think happens in the final confrontation? Comment below.